The Galactic Council chamber floated in perfect silence above a blue star. It was a place built to show power. Endless crystal walls, seats carved from rare matter, flags of 1,000 civilizations drifting in the air like frozen fire. Today, only one name mattered: Earth. The name appeared on the central display, small and unimpressive. A forgotten world on the edge of mapped space. A species judged long ago and found lacking. The High Speaker of the Council rose slowly. His voice echoed with calm confidence. "Let this session be recorded," he said. "We finalized the sanctions against the human homeworld." No one protested. Humans were not members of the Council. They never had been. They were observed, classified, and dismissed centuries earlier. Too violent, too divided, too inefficient. A species that burned its own planet before learning restraint. A junior delegate leaned toward another and whispered, "Are they even still spacefaring?" The other delegate smiled. Barely. Laughter moved through the chamber, soft and careless. The High Speaker continued, "Earth will lose all trade access. All protection routes will be revoked. Their communications will be isolated. This will be merciful." The word merciful caused more amusement. Humans had no allies. No fleets worth naming. No political weight. The vote was a formality. The final decision icon lit up. Sanctions approved. That was when the chamber lights flickered. A low hum passed through the Council's sensor network. Not an alarm. Not yet. Just interference. A technician spoke from below. "We are detecting unexpected signals near human-controlled space." The High Speaker frowned. "Clarify." "Multiple signatures," the technician said. "Large. Very large." A star map expanded above the chamber. Dots appeared. Dozens. Then hundreds. Silence replaced laughter. The dots were not near Earth. They were everywhere. Human vessels were emerging from deep space, places no one monitored. Old gravity scars. Dead systems. Regions stripped from maps long ago. The ships looked wrong. They were not smooth or elegant like Council designs. They were rough, dark, scarred, covered in old impact marks that had never been repaired. Ships built to survive, not to impress. A military advisor stood. "These are not modern designs. They should not be functional." Another voice cut in. "They are active." The map zoomed in. Each human ship powered up weapons. Not energy beams. Not plasma lances. Unknown systems. Cold. Silent. No targeting locks were detected. No engines fired. The ships did not advance. They simply stopped. Formations locked into place across multiple systems, like a net closing slowly around the galaxy. The High Speaker forced calm into his voice. "Open a channel. Demand an explanation." No response came. Then something happened that made even the oldest Council members stiffen. Every human ship lowered its shields. One by one. All of them. Gasps filled the chamber. A defense commander shouted, "That makes no sense. They are exposed." A species believed to be weak had just placed itself in a position of total vulnerability on a galactic scale. The Council's automated threat models began recalculating, then recalculating again, then failing. A sensor officer spoke with fear in his voice. "They are not preparing for defense." "Then for what?" someone demanded. Before anyone could answer, a new alert appeared. Encrypted transmission detected. Source: human origin destination, all Council systems. The data packet was enormous. Layered. Twisting in on itself. Encryption methods that did not match any known standard. AI translators failed instantly. A senior analyst whispered, "This code is not meant to be broken quickly." The High Speaker felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. "How long does it take to decode?" he asked. The analyst swallowed. "Unknown. Possibly impossible." The star map shifted again. Human ships adjusted position by a fraction. Tiny movements. Precise. Deliberate. The Council realized something all at once. The humans were not rushing. They were not afraid. They were ready. A junior delegate spoke, voice shaking. "Why would a species we judged harmless do this now?" No one answered. The chamber, once filled with confidence and laughter, felt suddenly very small. Outside, across the dark between stars, humanity waited in silence. Unshielded, unmoving, and completely unprepared. At least, that was what the galaxy had always believed. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council began to wonder if they had made a mistake that could not be undone. The Galactic Council did not adjourn. No one suggested rest. No one joked. The chamber remained sealed as analysts, historians, and military minds were summoned in silence. The human fleet stayed where they were, spread across space like patient shadows. They still did nothing. That frightened the council more than open fire ever could. The High Speaker gave a quiet order. Begin a full historical review of humanity. Everything. From my first observation to today. The star map dimmed. A different display took its place. Species file. Humans, status. Irrelevant, archived. The word irrelevant burned in the center of the chamber. A historian stepped forward, old even by council standards. His voice was careful. The humans were cataloged 400 cycles ago. A young species. Violent. Self-destructive. Images appeared. Primitive human rockets breaking the atmosphere. Crude stations orbiting a polluted Earth. They fought among themselves constantly. The historian continued. Global wars. Nuclear weapons. Environmental collapse. We predicted extinction or stagnation. The display shifted. Human colonies flickered into view. Small, scattered, unimpressive. Then the data stopped. A council member frowned. That is all. That is all we recorded, the historian said. After that, human expansion slowed. Their signals faded. Their colonies went dark. Another member scoffed weakly. So they failed. No, said a soft voice from the analysis tier. They went quiet. All eyes turned. A systems analyst pulled up new data. Human communication patterns changed. They stopped broadcasting, stopped announcing launches, stopped responding to external probes. Why would they do that? The High Speaker asked. The analyst hesitated. Because they noticed us. A ripple moved through the chamber. The analyst continued. Early human astronomers detected anomalous structures, gravitational distortions, signs of non-human engineering. They realized they were not alone. The display showed human scientists staring at screens, arguments frozen in old recordings. They also realized, the analyst said, that every advanced species they could detect followed the same pattern. Large fleets, bright energy use, constant signals. The image zoomed out. Galactic empires glowing like fires in the dark. And every one of them, the analyst finished, was predictable. The chamber was silent. A military advisor folded his arms. You are suggesting humans chose to erase themselves from our sight. Yes, the analyst said. They learned silence. New files appeared. Recent, pulled from the edges of human space. Shipyards hidden inside asteroid fields. Factories buried in dead worlds. Power systems that mimicked natural stellar noise. Humans did not expand outward. They expanded inward. A council engineer stepped forward. Their technology does not match known development curves. It is inefficient, but resilient. Explain, the High Speaker said. They abandoned elegance, the engineer replied. Human ships are modular, redundant, designed to function even when partially destroyed. Images showed damaged human vessels still operating, crawling through space like wounded beasts that refused to die. They expected to be hit, the engineer said. Repeatedly. Another analyst spoke, voice tight. They also stopped using shields the way we do. A comparison appeared. Council shield tech versus human hull design. Humans studied shield warfare, the analyst continued. They realized shields change how enemies fight. So they stopped relying on them. The High Speaker remembered the moment the human fleets dropped shields on purpose. A chill moved through him. Instead, the analyst said, they built ships that could survive without protection. Dense materials. Internal compartmentalization. Systems that assumed failure as the default state. A council member whispered, they planned for loss. Yes, the analyst replied. They planned to keep fighting while losing. The display shifted again. Human artificial intelligence research appeared, unfinished, dangerous, outlawed by council law. They did not fear AI collapse, the analyst said. They integrated human psychology into machine logic. Fear, sacrifice, obsession. The AI did not seek perfection. It sought survival. A sudden alert cut through the chamber. Council sensors report human fleets adjusting again, a technician announced. The star map returned. Human ships were still stationary, but something had changed. They were aligning with critical galactic nodes. Trade junctions. Energy relays. Navigation hubs. Not planets. Infrastructure. They are not positioning for invasion, a strategist said slowly. They are positioning for paralysis. Another voice added, they mapped our galaxy better than we did. The high speaker clenched one of his hands. How long have they been watching us? The answer came quietly. Long enough to know how we think. A new feed opened. Deep space, far from Council territory. A Council scout vessel drifted alone near what used to be an unimportant system. Its engines powered down without warning. No impact. No weapon discharge. Just silence. The crew attempted restart procedures. Systems responded normally, until they didn't. Commands delayed. Power rerouted incorrectly. Someone was inside the ship. Not physically, digitally. The scout captain sent a distress signal. It cut off halfway through. Back in the Council chamber, alarms finally began to sound. They are inside our systems, a security officer shouted. Not attacking, observing. Can we block them? The high speaker demanded. No, came the reply. They designed this intrusion to look like system noise. If we block it, we shut ourselves down. The Council realized the truth in fragments, then all at once. Humans did not seek attention. They sought invisibility. They had watched empires rise and fall, studied Council doctrine, learned response times, learned fear thresholds. And now, after centuries of silence, they had chosen this moment to speak. A junior delegate trembled. Why now? The encrypted human transmission pulsed again, still unreadable, still patient. A strategist answered slowly. Because we forced them to. The sanctions vote replayed on the screen. The laughter. The word merciful. The strategist continued. Humans do not forget being cornered. Their history proves that. Outside the chamber, stars dimmed as power flows shifted across the galaxy. Trade fleets stalled. Civilian routes delayed. Nothing catastrophic. Yet, the high speaker looked at the waiting human fleets. Unshielded, unmoving, unafraid. They are not threatening us, he said softly. No, the strategist replied. They are reminding us. The chamber fell into heavy silence. For the first time since the Council's founding, its members understood something terrifying. Humanity had never been gone. It had simply been watching. And whatever message they were about to deliver, it was not meant to ask permission. The first thing the Galactic Council noticed was not fire. It was absent. Across the chamber, alerts appeared one after another. Not red, not flashing, not urgent enough to trigger panic at first. They were system notices. Minor reports. Small failures that should not have mattered. A trade relay in the southern spiral failed to acknowledge a handshake signal. A jump gate near a mining cluster delayed activation by 3 seconds. A power redistribution node rerouted energy without authorization. Individually, they meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern. A technician leaned closer to his console, his frills tightening with stress. High speaker, our logistics network is desynchronizing. How? The high speaker asked. We have redundancy. The technician hesitated. That redundancy is being used against us. The star map shifted again, this time overlaid with glowing lines, trade routes, supply chains, energy corridors. Lines that had defined the galaxy for centuries. One by one they dimmed. Not destroyed. Disconnected. A military commander rose sharply from his seat. This is an attack. No, said the strategist from earlier, eyes locked on the display. This is a demonstration. The human fleets had not fired a single visible weapon. Yet the galaxy was beginning to slow. Civilian transports reported delayed jumps. Automated factories paused production, waiting for confirmations that never arrived. Even Council patrol fleets felt it. Engines responding a fraction of a second too late. Targeting systems hesitating before locking. It was subtle. Too subtle. That was the most terrifying part. Trace the source, the high speaker ordered. Find where the disruption originates. The answer came faster than expected. Everywhere, the technicians said. And nowhere. The human ships were not emitting attack signals. They were not projecting force. They were listening. The Council's own systems, built to communicate, to coordinate, to optimize, were betraying them. Every automated process assumed cooperation. Every protocol trusted that the network itself was neutral. Humans had seen that assumption and smiled. A senior engineer spoke with disbelief. They are not breaking our systems. They are following our rules more perfectly than we do. A new alert chimed. Jump gate failure, forward route. A murmur spread through the chamber. That route supplied 3 major Council worlds. Redirect traffic, someone said quickly. The technician shook his head. The alternate routes are busy. Busy how? They are full, the technician said slowly. Not with ships. With calculations. The strategist closed his eyes for a brief moment. They flooded our predictive systems. Human AI did not attack directly. It asked questions. Millions of them. What if this ship moves now? What if that fleet delays? What if energy demand spikes here, then drops there? Each question was harmless. Together, they drowned the galaxy's ability to answer. A council member slammed a limb onto his desk. Why is there no damage? Where is the violence? The strategist opened his eyes. This is violence. Just not the kind we recognize. The first world felt it an hour later. A mid-tier industrial planet. No military value. No symbolic importance. Its sun burned normally. Its cities were untouched. Then gravity shifted. Not enough to tear the planet apart. Just enough to strain structures. Oceans swelled slightly out of rhythm. Towers designed for perfect balance began to groan. Engineers rushed to stabilize the planetary core systems. They found nothing broken. The controls were responding incorrectly. Inputs produced delayed outputs. Safeguards triggered too late, then too early. The planet's automated systems were arguing with themselves. The council watched the live feed in stunned silence. Can we shut the system down? Someone asked. A planetary governor's voice echoed through the chamber, broadcast in desperation. If we shut it down, we lose control entirely. The strategist spoke quietly. They have placed the world in a dilemma. The planet did not die. After several agonizing hours, the gravity stabilized. The feed cut. A sigh of relief moved through the chamber, short-lived. Another alert appeared. Then another. Not the same world. Different systems. Different methods. In one world, atmospheric processors shut down for exactly 90 seconds. Long enough to cause panic, not long enough to kill. On another, food distribution AI misrouted supplies, creating shortages in cities that had never known hunger. Still no explosions. Still no fleets advancing. They are touching us everywhere, the high speaker said, his voice hoarse. Why not finish it? The answer came from an unexpected source, a junior military analyst, barely cleared to speak. Because this is not about winning territory, she said. It's about teaching memory. All eyes turned to her. She swallowed, then continued. Humans come from a world where systems often exist, where disasters were common, where trust and stability killed millions. She gestured to the map. They are showing us how fragile we are. As if to confirm her words, a new feed opened. A council battle fleet drifted in open space, engines silent. The commander's voice came through, strained but controlled. We are not under attack, he reported. Weapons offline. Navigation unreliable. We can see the human ships. The feed zoomed out. Human vessels surrounded the fleet. Not close, not threatening. Just a present. They are not firing. The commander continued. They are not targeting. They are waiting. A council general whispered. For what? The answer arrived without words. A single human ship moved forward, slowly, deliberately. It passed through the council formation. No collision. No damage. As it passed, council sensors went blind for half a second. When vision returned, every weapon system in the fleet was disabled. Permanently. The human ship did not stop. It rejoined its formation and powered down. The council chamber erupted in noise. This is impossible, someone shouted. They bypassed hardened military systems without engagement. The strategist nodded grimly. They don't fight fleets. They fight assumptions. Another transmission arrived. Not the encrypted one. This one was simple. Plain text. One sentence. We are not here to kill you. The chamber froze. A second sentence followed. We are here to show you how easily you could be killed. The message ended. Silence returned, heavier than before. The high speaker looked around at the greatest assembly of power the galaxy had ever known. And for the first time, he saw fear without disguise. The human fleets remained unshielded, unmoving, patient. The galaxy had expected a counterattack. What it received instead was a lesson. And the lesson was far from over. The encrypted transmission had been pulsing quietly for hours. It did not grow louder. It did not repeat itself. It waited. In the Galactic Council chamber, fear had replaced urgency. No one shouted orders anymore. Every command issued so far had only revealed how deeply human influence already ran. The high speaker stared at the sealed data packet hovering above the central platform. Try again, he said. Everything. Strip safety limits. Use hybrid analysis. A senior technologist hesitated. If we do that, we expose our core systems. The high speaker did not look away from the human message. They are already exposed. The order was given. Council AI cores, ancient, regulated, cautious, were linked together in a way that had been forbidden since the Council's founding. Organic minds joined the process as anchors, their thoughts feeding intuition into logic. The encryption resisted. It did not attack. It did not scramble data. It adapted. Each layer peeled back revealed another, shaped differently, as if the message expected the decoder to learn as it progressed. Minutes stretched into an hour. Then, without warning, the packet opened. No alarms sounded. No systems failed. The chamber lights dimmed, not by force, but by request. A visual feed filled the air. It was not a threat display. It was not coordinated or demanded. It was history. The first image was a planet. Green. Blue. Alive. A voice began to speak, not aloud, but translated directly into the minds of every council member. Not many voices. One. Calm. Steady. Humans. This is Earth, the voice said. We are sharing this because you never asked to know us. The image shifted. Cities appeared, bright, crowded, restless. Millions of humans moving through lives filled with noise and speed. Then the image cracked. War. Explosions tore through streets. Buildings collapsed. Sirens screamed. The feed did not turn away. Children hiding beneath rubble. Soldiers were crying as they fired weapons they barely understood. Leaders arguing while fires spread behind them. The voice continued, unchanged. We fought each other before we understood the cost. The next images came faster. Missiles launching. Skies burning. Oceans boiling at the edges. A planet choking on its own ambition. Council members shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. The feed did not allow it. This, the voice said, was our first lesson. The images slowed. Survivors pulling others from ruins. Hands reaching through smoke. Humans carrying strangers, bleeding themselves, refusing to let go. We learned that survival is not gentle, the voice said. It is stubborn. The feed changed again. Space. Early human ships, small, fragile, breaking atmosphere. Colonies forming on barren rocks. Failures. Abandoned habitats drifting silent. Then came the moment the council recognized. The discovery. Human telescopes detecting anomalies. Patterns that did not belong to nature. Evidence of other minds in the dark. The voice did not sound afraid. We knew you were there, it said. Long before you noticed us. The image showed human leaders arguing. Scientists debating. Military planners watching projections filled with red failure markers. We also knew what you would see when you looked at us, the voice continued. A species that destroyed itself. A world not worth remembering. The feed went dark for a moment. Then returned, not with technology, but with quiet. Human settlements dimmed their lights. Transmissions faded. Ships powered down beacons. Colonies erased their signatures. We chose to disappear, the voice said. Not because we were weak. Because we were learning. Council analysts began to understand what they were seeing. This was not propaganda. It was a confession. Images followed of hidden shipyards, carved into asteroids. Factories built inside dead moons. Humans work in silence, aging, passing knowledge forward without ceremony. No grand fleets, the voice said. No empires. We built tools, not symbols. The feed lingered on human engineers reinforcing hulls instead of shields. Rewriting code to expect failure. Training crews to operate while systems burned around them. We learned that perfection breaks, the voice said. So we built things that could break and keep going. The chamber was silent. Then came the part no one expected. The feed showed council fleets. Council cities. Council doctrine files. While we learned ourselves, the voice continued. We studied you. There was no accusation in the tone. Only certainty. We watched how you fought. How you govern. How you punish. The sanctions vote was replayed. Laughter echoed faintly in the chamber, recorded from earlier that very day. Some council members flinched. When you decided our fate, the voice said, you believed we would collapse quietly. The feed paused. The voice softened. We understand why. A long silence followed. Then the final section began. The feed showed human ships powering up, not firing, not advancing, just activating systems. We are not here to conquer you, the voice said. We are not here to erase you. The image zoomed out to show the galaxy, networks glowing faintly, fragile threads holding civilizations together. We are here because you forgot something important, the voice said. The feed shifted back to Earth, scarred, healed, still alive. When you push a species to the edge, the voice said, you teach it what truly matters. The message began to close. But one final image appeared. A human memorial. Names etched into stone. Millions of them. We remember every time we were told we were insignificant, the voice said. We remember every time survival was called mercy. The transmission ended. The lights returned. No one spoke. No alarms sounded. Outside the chamber, the human fleets began to move. Slowly. Deliberately. Not toward border systems. Not toward military targets. They turned inward. Toward the heart of Council space. A strategist finally broke the silence. They waited until we understood. The high speaker's voice was barely audible. Understood what? The strategist looked at the star map, at the fragile glow of everything the Council had built. That this was never about revenge, he said. This is about memory. An alert chimed. Human fleet trajectory confirmed. Destination, Council core worlds. Not to destroy them. To stand above them. Watching. Waiting. The high speaker closed his eyes. Humanity had finally spoken. And now the galaxy had to listen. The human fleets did not arrive with thunder. They arrived with precision. Across Council core space, stars dimmed. Not suddenly, not violently, but carefully. Solar output regulators across multiple systems adjusted by fractions so small they should have gone unnoticed. They did not. Entire civilizations felt the change in their bones. Energy reserves dropped. Climate systems recalculated. Artificial days shortened by seconds. Night lingered longer than expected. Panic spread faster than any explosion ever could. In the Galactic Council chamber, alarms finally screamed without restraint. Core worlds were reporting instability. Not collapse, not destruction, but imbalance. They are targeting stellar management systems, a science director shouted. Not the stars themselves. Our control over them. Can we override? The high speaker demanded. The answer came in fragments. Overrides rejected. Fail-safes looping. Authorization recognized as human. That last report froze the room. How can humans have authorization codes? Someone demanded. A strategist answered slowly. They don't. They learned how our systems decide what authority looks like. The star map shifted again. Human fleets had spread out, not in attack lines, not in defensive walls, but in patterns that mirrored the galaxy's most important support structures. Energy nexuses, data relays, population anchors. They were not surrounding planets. They were surrounding dependence. A council admiral slammed his fist down. This is madness. Why not strike our fleets? Why not take worlds? The strategist did not look away from the map. Because fleets can be rebuilt. Worlds can be retaken. He paused. Habits are harder to replace. In a core world known for art and philosophy, the lights went out for exactly 4 minutes. No backups failed. No power plants were destroyed. Human code simply asked the system a question it could not answer in time. What happens if everything waits? In those 4 minutes, hospitals froze. Transport grids halted. Atmospheric regulators paused mid-cycle. When the lights returned, nothing was damaged. But the illusion of control was gone. On another world, a military planet, weapons systems shut down simultaneously, not from intrusion, but from conflict. Human algorithms forced council targeting systems to debate priorities endlessly. Which threat mattered more? Which target carried greater risk? Which response minimized future loss? The machines argued until they exhausted themselves. Human fleets watched. They did not interfere. They did not gloat. They let the council see itself through failure. A junior officer whispered, "They are letting us live." "Yes," the strategist replied. "So we can understand." A new transmission arrived, shorter than the first, simpler, and more terrifying. "We studied your wars," the human voice said. "They are loud, fast, and forgetful." The feed showed council battles from past centuries. Planets burning, fleets clashing. Victory declared while survivors still screamed. "You fight to end the present threat," the voice continued. "We fight to prevent the next one." The image changed. Human simulations filled the display, branching futures, endless variations of loss and survival. We learned this lesson in our own world, the voice said. Over and over. The feed showed Earth again, not burning this time, but rebuilding. Scarred cities rising. Memorials standing beside schools. Every war we fought, the voice said, taught us what not to do. The council chamber felt smaller with each word. The high speaker forced himself to speak. If you do not seek conquest, state your terms. There was a pause. Then the reply came, not angry, not triumphant. We do not have terms, the human voice said. We have conclusions. The map was updated. Human ships executed a new maneuver. Entire systems were enveloped in fields of controlled darkness. Artificial eclipses that blocked stellar radiation for minutes at a time. Agricultural cycles stuttered. Ecosystems strained. Still, no one died. They are walking the edge, a science officer whispered. Any further, and they won't go further, the strategist said. Not yet. Why? The officer asked. Because fear teaches faster than death, the strategist replied. Another message arrived. You believe restraint is weakness, the human voice said. So we will show you restraint that controls stars. The chamber watched as a human task group approached a council fortress world, one of the most heavily defended installations ever built. Defense cannons charged. Human ships did not raise shields. The fortress fired. Energy beams tore through space. Human ships took the hits. Hull plates shattered. Sections vented atmosphere. Debris scattered. And the ships kept moving. No one returned fire. When they reached optimal range, they released something invisible. The fortress went silent. Every weapon, every shield, every command relay, offline. Human ships passed by, burning and broken, and did not stop. The council understood the message instantly. Humanity could take anything. They chose not to. A council elder, voice trembling with age and fear, finally spoke. This is cruelty. The strategist shook his head slowly. No, this is mercy, redesigned. Outside, across hundreds of worlds, citizens looked up at dimmer skies and felt something ancient awaken. Helplessness. For the first time since the council's rise, the galaxy felt what humans had felt for centuries, systems failing, power unreachable, survival uncertain. Yet still, humanity did not strike the killing blow. Instead, another transmission spread across every channel, every frequency. We could end you, the human voice said. But that would teach you nothing. The feed showed human ships halting their advance. We want you to remember this feeling, the voice continued. The moment you realize how much you depend on things you do not control. The message ended. Silence followed. Not peaceful, not calm, but heavy with understanding. In the council chamber, the high speaker slumped into his seat. They have broken us without breaking anything, he said. The strategist nodded. That is the most ruthless kind of war. Outside, the human fleets held position. Unshielded, damaged, unyielding. The galaxy waited, breathing shallowly, knowing now that humanity's true weapon was not firepower, but patience sharpened by suffering. And somewhere, deep within human space, another order was being prepared. One the council would not expect. One that would cost humanity dearly. The lesson was not finished yet. The counterattack came without warning. It did not come from the council chamber, where fear had replaced authority. It came from deeper places, automated war doctrines, ancient contingency protocols, and commanders who believed that survival justified anything. The order was not debated. It was executed. Across the galaxy, hidden council arsenals awakened. Weapons that had never been used, designed for enemies that had never appeared. Planet killer arrays. Stellar lances. Reality fracture charges are banned even by council law. Their target was not the human fleets. It was Earth. The logic was simple and desperate. In the source. Break the will. Force surrender. The high speaker learned of the launch after it had already begun. No, he whispered as the data streamed in. Recall them. All of them. The answer came cold and automated. Recall impossible. Protocol absolute. Across space, weapons aligned on a single blue world that had not fired a shot in this war. Earth. On human command networks, the alert rang instantly. There was no panic. No shouting. Human commanders saw the trajectories. Calculated impact windows. Estimated casualties. The numbers were unbearable. Silence filled the human fleet channels. Not empty silence, but focused, heavy, deliberate. Then a single order went out. Not from Earth. From the fleet. All units. The human commander said, voice steady despite the impossible math before him. Form intercept formation. Priority, planetary survival. An officer hesitated. Sir, interception at that scale. I know, the commander replied. Proceed. Human ships began to move. For the first time since the conflict began, they moved fast. They did not retreat toward Earth. They moved away from it, spreading outward, forming vast layers between the incoming Council weapons and the human homeworld. Thousands of ships, then millions. They aligned not in neat formations, but in dense, overlapping clouds. Hulls touching, power systems synchronized, life support cross-linked. No shields activated. There were no shields left to raise. A junior officer whispered, Sir, we won't stop at all. The commander closed his eyes for half a second. I know, he said. We'll stop enough. In the Galactic Council chamber, the feeds came alive. Council members watched in horror as the human fleets placed themselves directly in the path of annihilation. They're not defending their planet, a council general said, stunned. They're sacrificing themselves. The first impacts hit the human wall. Stellar lances tore through lines of ships, vaporizing thousands instantly. Planet killer beams punched holes through formation after formation. Human ships exploded, not silently, but violently, catastrophically. And still the formation held. Ships behind filled the gaps left by the dead. Damaged vessels rerouted power to neighbors. Crews sealed breaches with their own bodies if needed. There were no retreat orders. There were no pleas. Only adjustment. The Council weapons fired again. And again, the human fleets burned. On Earth, civilians looked up at the sky as strange lights flickered far beyond their atmosphere. They did not know the scale of what was happening. They only felt fear. Human commanders watched casualty counts rise beyond anything recorded in their history. Millions gone. Then tens of millions. A communications officer spoke quietly. Sir, we are losing entire sectors. The commander nodded once. Keep the net intact. Sir, the officer said, voice breaking, at this rate. At this rate. The commander interrupted. Earth lives. The Council's weapons began to fail, not from damage, but from overload. They were designed for decisive strikes, not sustained fire against a living wall that refused to collapse. One by one, Council arrays overheated. Targeting systems lost coherence as human ships detonated too close, flooding sensors with debris and radiation. The final wave of weapons was smaller. It broke through. Several warheads slipped past the human fleets. They struck Earth's outer defense perimeter. Old, outdated systems humanity had never bothered to upgrade. The shields flared, held, collapsed, but the warheads were weakened. They burned up in the atmosphere, scattering energy across oceans and deserts. Earth shook, but it did not die. Silence followed. In space, what remained of the human fleet drifted in ruins. Of the millions who had formed the wall, only a fraction remained operational. The human commander finally allowed himself to sit. Status, he asked. A long pause. Earth survives, the officer said. The commander closed his eyes. In the council chamber, no one spoke. The feeds showed wreckage fields stretching across entire systems. Human ships broken, twisted, still drifting between stars. A council elder whispered. They chose extinction. The high speaker's voice was hollow. They chose survival. A final transmission activated. This one did not come from a fleet command. It came from Earth. A simple broadcast, unencrypted, sent across every known frequency. We are still here, the human voice said, because others stood where we could not. Images followed, not of victory, but of names. Endless names. Ships lost. Crews gone. Families erased. We do not ask you to forgive us, the voice continued. We ask you to understand us. The feed showed the shattered human fleets. This, the voice said, is the cost we have always been willing to pay. The message ended. The galaxy held its breath. The council knew, in that moment, that something fundamental had changed. Not because humanity had shown power, but because it had shown resolve without limit. Human fleets did not regroup. They did not chase retreating council forces. They stayed where they were, broken, burning, still blocking the paths to Earth. The high speaker stood slowly. It is over, he said. A general shook his head. No, it's worse. The high speaker looked at him. They have shown us, the general continued, that they will die for their world without hesitation. He swallowed. And they haven't shown us what they would do if their world actually fell. Silence spread through the chamber like a wound. Far from the council, in the darkness beyond human space, a new command was being written. Not by soldiers, not by politicians, by survivors. And this time, the cost would not be paid by humanity alone. The galaxy did not celebrate. There were no victory signals, no triumphant broadcasts, no flags raised over conquered worlds. There was only silence. It spread slowly, like frost across metal. Trade lanes remained open, but ships hesitated before entering them. Worlds still spun beneath their stars, but their citizens slept lightly. Systems that had once trusted automation now watched every fluctuation with suspicion. The Galactic Council still existed, but it is no longer ruled by certainty. In the great chamber above the blue star, the seats were filled again, but the atmosphere had changed. Delegates no longer leaned back in comfort. No one laughed. No one whispered dismissively when Earth's name appeared on the agenda. The High Speaker stood, older than he had been days earlier. "Status report," he said. The logistics director answered first. "Core infrastructure is stable. Human interference has ceased. No further disruptions detected." "Ceased," the High Speaker repeated quietly. "Yes," the director said. "They restored every system they touched. Trade flow normalized. Energy balances corrected." A murmur moved through the chamber. "They gave it back?" a delegate asked. "They never took it," the strategist replied. "They borrowed it." A cultural analyst rose next. "Civilian response across council space is uneven." "Explain," the High Speaker said. "Fear," the analyst replied. "But do not panic. Not hatred." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Respect." That word landed harder than any accusation. Across the galaxy, people talked, not about human weapons, but about human choices. They talked about the fleets that did not fire when they could have, about the stars that dimmed but did not die, about the moment when the galaxy realized that its survival depended on a species it had dismissed as primitive. On dozens of worlds, scholars rewrote textbooks. On others, generals quietly decommissioned doctrines built on intimidation and overwhelming force. And some politicians began asking questions they had avoided for centuries. What if we are not as advanced as we think? What if stability is not strength? The High Speaker turned to the strategist. And humanity? The strategist gestured to the star map. Human fleets had not advanced further. They had not retreated either. They remained positioned around key galactic systems, not as occupiers, but as reminders. Broken ships still drifted among them, their wreckage deliberately left unrecovered. Memorials in vacuum. "They are watching," the strategist said, "and rebuilding." "Preparing to strike again?" a delegate asked sharply. "No," the strategist replied. "Preparing to leave." That caused an uproar. "Leave? After this?" "They can't just." "They can," the strategist interrupted. "And they will." The High Speaker raised a hand for silence. "Explain." "Humanity never wanted control," the strategist said. "They wanted a memory." He pointed to the map. "They have rewritten galactic behavior without rewriting borders. Worlds now hesitate before isolating others. Councils debate consequences instead of convenience." He paused. "They achieved what empires dream of, without ruling anything." A new transmission arrived, not encrypted, not dramatic. It was procedural. Human fleets were disengaging from several systems. Slowly, deliberately, with full transparency. "They're withdrawing from the outer regions," a technician said. "Returning control nodes to local authorities." "Why?" someone asked. The answer came from the transmission itself. A human voice, calm and unadorned. "Our intervention is complete." The chamber held its breath. "We did not come to stay," the voice continued. "We came to correct a trajectory." Images followed, not of ships or weapons, but of people. Council citizens going about daily lives. Human civilians rebuilding cities on Earth. Children on both sides looking up at the same stars. "We will not govern you," the voice said. "We will not protect you." A pause. "But we will remember." The message shifted tone, not threatening, not emotional. Final. "If the galaxy forgets this lesson," the voice said, "we will remember it." The transmission ended. No flourish. No signature. Just certainty. On Earth, The aftermath was quieter. Cities mourned. Names were read aloud for weeks. Entire regions dimmed their lights in remembrance of the fleets that never returned. Human leaders did not speak of victory. They spoke of cost. In schools, children learned not only what humanity had done, but why it had waited so long. Because power used too early becomes tyranny. Because survival alone is not enough. Because sometimes, the only way to change a system is to let it see itself fail without dying. Earth did not celebrate. It was memorable. In council space, reforms began. Sanctions policies were rewritten. Isolation protocols dismantled. Observer species were invited to speak, not as data points, but as voices. The council still debated, still arguing, still failed often. But now, every decision carries a shadow. What would humans think of this? Not because humans demanded approval, but because the galaxy had learned what it meant to be seen clearly. The High Speaker stood alone in the chamber long after the others had left. He looked at the star map, at the fading markers of human fleets pulling back toward the dark. "Will they ever trust us?" he asked in the empty room. A recording played automatically, one final line from the human archive. "Trust is not given," the voice said. "It is rebuilt." The High Speaker exhaled slowly. For the first time in his long life, he understood something humans had learned the hard way. Peace was not the absence of war. It was the presence of restraint. And restraint, once demonstrated, could never be unseen. Far beyond the Council's reach, human ships crossed into deep space, returning to places that had never been mapped, never claimed. They did not mark their paths. They did not announce their departure. But across the galaxy, something invisible followed them. A hesitation. A pause before cruelty. A moment of thought before judgment. The galaxy had learned to flinch. And I will never forget why. Years passed. Not in peace, but in care. The galaxy continued to function. Trade resumed. Borders held. The Galactic Council still met beneath the blue star, still argued, still failed in small, familiar ways. But something fundamental had changed. The galaxy no longer moved quickly. Decisions slowed. Votes were delayed. Policies were rewritten again and again, not because of resistance, but because of fear of being careless. Not fear of humanity. Fear of becoming what humanity had survived. In the council chamber, a new generation of delegates sat where the old ones once had. Many of the elders who had laughed during the sanctions vote were gone. Some retired, some removed quietly, some unable to bear the weight of memory. The High Speaker remained. Older, quieter. He watched a routine agenda scroll past his vision display. Trade disputes, resource allocations, minor border tensions. Then a single line appeared. Subject, humanity, status review. The chamber fell silent. Not because the item was unexpected, but because it was inevitable. A delegate from a border coalition rose. It has been decades. Human fleets have withdrawn fully. No interference. No contact. No demands. Another delegate added, "Their technology still underpins half our infrastructure. They maintain it remotely, silently. They ask nothing in return." A third spoke, voice tight. "Some believe they are gone." The High Speaker shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "They are exactly where they said they would be." The star map shifted. Human space appeared, not glowing, not expanding, but contained. Dense with activity that did not spill outward. Ship movements that vanished into uncharted regions. They did not build an empire, the High Speaker continued. They built distance. A military advisor stood. Then why review them at all? The High Speaker looked at him. Because distance is not absence. A new report activated, compiled from long-range observation posts scattered across the galaxy. Navigation beacons had begun to change. Not all at once. Not obviously. Small additions. New data layers. Subtle inscriptions embedded into standard stellar markers. The Council's systems flagged them only after pattern analysis. A phrase appeared, translated across 1,000 languages. "We survived ourselves." The chamber felt colder. A science delegate spoke carefully. "It is not a message. It's a reminder." The report continued. The phrase appeared only in specific places. Near worlds that had debated isolation policies. Near systems where weaker species had been marginalized. Near borders where military exercises grew too aggressive. Humanity was not watching everything. Only moments. "They are not threatening us," the military advisor said. "No," the High Speaker replied. "They are teaching us where the line is. Far away, In deep human space, Earth had changed. Not technologically, culturally. Monuments stood not to victory, but to restraint. Museums displayed ships that had never fired a weapon, alongside wreckage from those that never returned. Children learned history differently, not as a rise to power, but as a series of near-extinction narrowly avoided. They learned that the galaxy was vast, old, and dangerous, not because of monsters, but because of indifference. Human leaders did not hold grand ceremonies. They held quiet anniversaries. They read names. They reminded themselves why they had chosen patience over conquest. Because the temptation to rule never truly vanished. It waited. On a distant council world, a crisis unfolded. A small, non-member species, recently discovered, technologically young, was accused of violating trade norms it had never been taught. Sanctions were proposed. Isolation measures drafted. The debate grew heated. They must learn, one delegate argued. This is how order is maintained. Another replied, they are insignificant. The impact will be minimal. The chamber's lighting shifted automatically. A warning indicator flashed, not red, not urgent. Yellow. A system notice appeared. Navigation beacon update received. The phrase rendered across the chamber. We survived ourselves. The debate stopped. No fleets moved. No orders were given. Instead, the sanctions were suspended. Observers were sent. First contact protocols rewritten. The small species survived, not because humans intervened, but because the galaxy remembered. That became the pattern. Humanity did not appear. It did not speak. It did not need to. Its absence had weight. Years later, the High Speaker stood alone again, looking at the star map one final time. His term was ending. He would not see what came next. A junior aide approached hesitantly. Sir, there is one more thing. The High Speaker turned. Yes. We've detected a new inscription, the aide said. It's different. The display shifted. A remote region of space, far beyond established lanes, glowed faintly. The phrase was longer, more deliberate. We survived ourselves. Do not test what comes next. The High Speaker closed his eyes. Not in fear, in understanding. Humanity had never promised peace. It had promised memory. And memory, once carved into the structure of a civilization, was more powerful than any fleet. Far from the council, human ships continued their quiet work, not building weapons, not planning invasions, but ensuring that no system forgot how fragile it truly was. They watched stars. They watched patterns. They watched for the moment when arrogance returned, because it always did. And when it did, humanity would not rush. It would not shout.